Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and pause intermittently to talk about things that are going on, to better explain what's going on, and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. So, without further ado, here we go.
I'm Assistant Chief Thomas Harden of the Houston Police Department. This critical incident briefing is intended to provide you with information about an officer-involved shooting that occurred in Houston on May 4th, 2022. You are about to see video footage that is related to this incident. HPD conducts thorough investigations into officer-involved shootings. These typically require investigators to interview multiple witnesses, view numerous hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. It is important to note that we are in the very early stages of the investigation, and we continue to review additional evidence as it is collected and analyzed. The videos you are about to see can be graphic and may be difficult to watch. These videos may also contain strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. At approximately 11:20 a.m., as part of an ongoing narcotics investigation, Houston police officers conducted a traffic stop on a black pickup truck. The driver, Jimmy Bryan, pulled into a gas station parking lot. Officers approached the vehicle and asked Mr. Bryan for identification. Mr. Bryan stated he did not have any on him, so an officer asked him to step out of the truck. Mr. Bryan produced a gun and began to fire at the two officers. The officers returned fire, striking the suspect. Mr. Bryan was treated at the scene for his injuries and transported by ambulance to the hospital. One officer was struck twice and transported to the hospital in stable condition.
There's no going service for it. That's the McDonald's. Have to slow it down.
He is not moving around.
I'm going to go past the exit on second one.
He's looking down.
Alright, let's back this up.
The exit
He's not moving around.
slow it down. There's no going service for it. That's the McDonald's. Have to slow it down.
Okay, so let's take a look at this truck. First of all, I just want to say that anytime that I have ever encountered anyone who drives a truck like this, they're a fucking douchebag. I don't know what it is about the style of the truck and the stupid ass rims and the aftermarket clear brake light thing bullshit and the little racing or automotive-ish kind of related to racing stuff sticker in the back windshield. Yeah, I don't know what it is about that, but anytime that I've dealt with someone who's been in a vehicle, similar to this, or, I see other things with people in vehicles like that, it's always some douchebags. So these officers were apparently doing a narcotics investigation. Now, a news report from, looks like click2houston.com by Brittany Taylor. It says that HPD Chief Troy Fenner said two officers were conducting a traffic stop for the suspect, who was wanted on an outstanding drug warrant. I want you to keep that in mind. That this, what I just read, said that they're looking to stop him because he has a drug warrant out for him. Now, another article that I was reading, and it looks like same person, just looks like a different an article, like a later one, kind of going into more details about him. It talked about it being a joint investigation between the Drug Enforcement Administration, Houston Police, Texas Department of Public Safety, which is like their state police or highway patrol, ATF, etc. And so it seems like this dude was obviously under investigation by more than just one agency. And they did end up finding quite a few drugs in his vehicle. I'll go into that here in a second. But keep in mind that one article is talking about they're doing a traffic stop on him for a warrant, but they do not initiate anything like a felony traffic stop.
He is not moving around.
I'm going to go past the exit on 71.
He's looking down the hole.
And so if this article was correct and he did have a warrant and he's already under investigation for drug trafficking, this, in my opinion, is not the right way to be conducting a traffic stop. I think that a felony traffic stop should have been initiated on this guy for safety of the officers and then for the public. Now, why would they, if it was him having a warrant, why would they choose to try and do this like a normal traffic stop? I don't know this for sure, but I'd say there's the possibility that they thought that if they could trick him into thinking it was a normal traffic stop and they weren't out to get him, then he would be more compliant. And if it had the appearance of being a normal traffic stop, then he would be more likely to stop and not keep running. And if he kept running, then that could cause them to have to end their pursuit because they might have some stupid-ass pursuit policy within their agency. Those are the only things I can think of why they would conduct a traffic stop like this if this guy did, in fact, have a warrant and he's already under investigation. Me, like I said, personally, I think if he's got a warrant, he's already under investigation, felony stop his ass.
Officer down. Officer down.
Okay. So before we get into the shooting stuff, these vehicles are on them fucking fast. And so when I talked about they were possibly doing something that would look like a normal traffic stop to lower his vigilance or whatever, I think that's probably what's going on because these dudes are here super quick. Now let me back it up a whole lot. So pay attention to this Durango right here. So he pulls in. So you see the officer here at the window. So they've already made the traffic stop. And then boom. Durango goes in this way. He's going to pull into this parking lot over here. And then he pulls into this spot right here. We'll fast forward. Alright. So shooting happens. And then watch the cavalry come through. So you see one over there. Two. Now, when I first saw this or noticed it, I thought, wow, what is this? A damn police station over here? Like, what the fuck are all these cops doing over there? And then I noticed, looking at Google Maps, it is actually an enterprise rental center. And my first thought was, okay, well, maybe it's possible that that agency there has a relationship with Enterprise where they get their cars from. And there's actually some agencies out there that utilize Enterprise rentals for their patrol vehicles. Enterprise has a fleet vehicle program, and for X amount of money, an agency or municipality can enter into a contract with them and get X amount of vehicles, and with those vehicles they get so much service within X amount of miles and whatnot, etc. And then at the end of that contract they can kind of basically turn that vehicle back in and then end up getting another one with, of course, paying more money down. I don't know the more specific details of it like that, but there are a lot of agencies, like I said, that utilize Enterprise Rentals fleet vehicle program. And that's what I thought at first. But then I started reading about the arrest warrant and the narcotics investigation, and I thought, okay, well, these guys were tailing to begin with. They're going to do a takedown on this guy. And so I think that them pretending just to do a normal traffic stop kind of lower his hypervigilance, get him in a more cool, calm, collective state, get him out of the vehicle, and peacefully detain him. That way he wouldn't become violent. Obviously, he ended up becoming violent, and that's why I think that this possible ruse of peacefully pull him out of the vehicle to, detain him, and then boom, everybody gets there, was bullshit. Should have just went ahead and initiated felony traffic stop on this guy, and hopefully, this officer would not have gone through the experience of being shot. We can notice 1, 2, 3,
Officer down.
4, and so I think we saw this pickup truck earlier pull in, go this away, and then go over here. So he's a part of the crew. Once they clear out, then this guy over here backs up and he pulls out. So they got a pretty large presence here. All right, so let's go back into the shooting aspect of it. Actually, I tell you what, I'll just let it play from here, and then we'll talk about it through the body cam footage.
What's up, brother? Hey, how you doing? You in park?
Flat bill hat. Another sign of douchebaggery. Anytime I've ever dealt with anybody that had a flat bill hat, they've been a fucking douchebag.
Is this your track?
Anybody having these little star tattoos, again, another sign of being a fucking douchebag.
How long you been having it? Since how long? 2018. Alright, you got driver's license on you, buddy? Where you headed to? What? We're gonna go get a hotel. Oh, all right, where at? I'm not sure yet. Well, I was gonna take some of my stuff to storage. Okay. You got any weapons in here, brother? Yes. Okay. Is that an ankle monitor? Yes, sir.
Fucking ankle monitor. So yeah, this guy. So he has multiple prior arrests and convictions. So this Click to Houston news article has like 1, 2, 3, 4, has like 8 mugshots on here. His shit goes all the way back to 2016. He's only 23 years old, and he's been involved in shit since 2016. So I would also imagine that it wasn't like he just turned 18 and decided to start having a criminal lifestyle. I would say that most likely his criminal lifestyle began as a juvenile. And just like every state across this nation, the juvenile justice system, well, there's no fucking justice there. It is a joke. And the reason why it's a joke is a few reasons. One, the records are sealed. The court proceedings are sealed. You can't go into juvenile court and see what's going on. You can't get any information about juvenile court and see what's going on. You can't get mugshots or arrest records or anything. It's all sealed. And so that right there creates the issue where all this stupid shit goes on in the juvenile justice system, and the general public does not get to see that that's going on. And so they never have the opportunity to complain about anything. They never have the opportunity to see that some of these juvenile offenders who are 15, 16 years old are into some pretty serious, heavy shit. And they are treated like a 5-year-old in the eye of the law. And they are given the same privileges that an 8-year-old gets to enjoy. 15, 16-year-olds are basically fucking 18-year-olds in my opinion. The only thing that separates a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old, in my opinion, is how many times they've been around the sun. They have not reached that magical 18th revolution around the star. And because of that, they're treated way differently. And it should not be that way. So lots of states out there will give literally little slaps on the wrist to these juvenile offenders who are involved in some serious shit. Like, not just like selling some pot, but like selling actual fucking heroin and crystal meth and doing robberies and burglaries and carjackings and getting into high-speed pursuits. And they go in, if they even go to a detention center. Sometimes they're released to their parents. They don't even get to go see a detention center, depending on what they've done. And they don't spend a whole lot of time in the detention center. And I think that sets people up for big-time failure because they never learn a lesson at that point. They get accustomed to the way the juvenile stuff is done, and they can go commit a crime, they can go rob a store at night, and they can be back out on the streets within a few days. They can have their charges amended down, pretrial diverted, and the probation aspect of it is nothing. They're given multiple chances on that. So it's really just one big fucking joke. But the general public has absolutely no idea how big of a joke it is because all the juvenile stuff is sealed. Now, there is a news entity called Scoop Nashville, and they cover some stories out of Nashville, Tennessee. And there's something within Tennessee law, I haven't really done a whole lot of research into it, but it allows them to post some juvenile mugshot photos and some arrest citation or the narratives from arrest citations. And hell yeah, I like it because it's showing the public down there what some of these 15, 16-year-olds are doing. And they're doing the same shit that 18, 19-year-olds are doing. Same damn shit. Involved in the same lifestyle, doing the same stuff. The only difference, they just haven't been around the sun 18 fucking times. So, this guy, I am most confident, willing to put $100 down on it. He's been involved since he's been a juvenile. So he is a lifelong criminal. So it talks about his charges going back to 2016, but it doesn't really go into a whole lot of detail after that point. So let's hit play and move on.
GPS model out on Bryan. What are you doing on your phone? I was going to show you.
Oh, okay. And so on GPS monitor out on bond. So that is something that a lot of the progressive liberals love doing. They like initiating these alternative to detention programs, and instead of having, poor victims sitting in jail, because that's how the liberals view these motherfuckers. They see them as victims. They were raised in traumatic environments in their childhood, and this is why the way they are. They're little victims. Bullshit. Fuck that. But they have that mindset, and so they do these alternative to detentions. They'll do house incarceration, etc., and they'll release them out of jail, put them on an ankle monitor, and they have to check in with someone very so often. And probation and parole, for a lot of places, falls under the state's Department of Corrections department, or the corrections cabinet, however that's organized at the administrative level through the state. Some states will call it, the criminal justice cabinet, and under, they'll have like their state police and all this, and then they'll have Department of Corrections, whatever. But Department of Corrections traditionally is where you'll see probation and parole fall under. And if you've ever worked in a prison, if you've ever known anybody who's worked in a prison, or you just pay attention to the news and see things that goes on in prisons, you'll understand that there's a bunch of fucking idiots that work in prisons. I mean, some mouth-breathing fucking retards. And unfortunately, some of those people transition over into probation and parole. The standards to get into probation and parole are pretty damn low. Some places require a bachelor's degree, but it can be any fucking bachelor's degree. You can have a bachelor's degree in 13th century French basket weaving. Like, what the fuck does that got to do with probation and parole? So long as you have some kind of college, you can get in. And with a lot of places lowering standards for colleges and doing some other, bullshit practices to get, impoverished people into school, making things better for them, you're not always getting the greatest candidates in there. And so just because a person has a college degree, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're worth a damn. And so that is the problem that plagues a lot of probation and parole offices. Now, I'm not saying every probation and parole officer out there is crappy. There's some who, they do their due diligence and they try really hard to do their job, but they are limited with all kinds of administrative red tape because they may have people in supervisor roles who are the dumbasses who just happen to have some college degree, got into it, they were okay and accepting of the lower pay rate, and they stuck it out and they stayed there and they became a supervisor, but they have really no business being in that profession, and they should not ever be a supervisor anyway. And because they want to avoid any headaches, they don't want to be involved in any scandals or big high profile things and have to deal with use of force stuff, they put gloves on their probation and parole officers and they don't let them go out and do the shit that they need to be doing. And so there are some probation and parole officers out there who are gung-ho and they want to go out and do what they're supposed to do, but the bureaucracy of shit limits them in what they're able to do. And then there's some of them who they don't give a fuck about criminal justice. This is just an easy Monday through Friday kind of job for them. They ain't got to work in a factory, ain't got to work in a warehouse, they ain't got to be working on the roof, sweating their balls off. They get to work in an office and fill out paperwork, and that's the bulk of it. Like, they don't really engage a whole lot in real true law enforcement kind of work. Now, like I said, that's not like every place out there. It's a mixed match of kind of stuff, and I don't know the particulars of this area, but just know that the criminal justice system out there it's not as nice or is not as well put together as some people kind of seem to think it is. There's actually a bunch of fucking goofballs out there who don't do their damn jobs correctly, and tons of people like this right here get put on probation, and the person who's supposed to be watching them doesn't really do a thorough job in doing anything. They don't follow up on stuff. They give them multiple chances. They give them a schedule or an appointment to be in the office, and they come up with some bullshit excuse about why they can't make it, and they go with it, and they're not hard asses. They don't go out and do home visits. They don't go in and search their fucking shit the way they should because they're scared. Some of them are absolutely just scared to go do their damn job. Anyway, get off that rant. Moving on.
What?
Back this up in a second.
Is that an ankle monitor? Okay. You got any weapons in here, brother? Yes. Okay. Is that an ankle monitor?
Yes, sir. It is. GPS monitor on Bryan.
What are you doing on your phone?
I was going to show you some pictures of the truck.
Of what?
The vehicle when I first got it.
Oh, don't worry about it, man.
So this fixation with his phone and scrolling through it, and him coming up with some excuse about how he's going to show him some pictures of when he first got the truck, I call bullshit on that. This is very typical deceptive behavior out of people. There's something with fiddling with things that is a good indication that the person is lying to you. And because if they're fiddling with something, that means that they cannot hold eye contact with you. And some people say it's a bit of a pseudoscience, and it's not 100% all the time. But for good most part, anytime you're talking to someone and they are avoiding eye contact with you, they're being deceptive. They have something to hide. And this is a good textbook example of deceptive behavior. He is purposely avoiding eye contact with this officer, and he's playing with his phone, and he gives some bullshit reason of he's going to show him some pictures when he first got the truck. Like, who the fuck gives a shit about when you first got this truck? No one's questioning whether or not, you got the truck at the time that you said you got it. So, deceptive behavior right there. I'm sure this officer has probably picked up on it, given the fact that, they are specifically targeting this guy for a stop.
Let's get that ID.
And, it could have been a stalling tactic for him as well, because you're about to find out that he does not have an ID. So I'll back this up a little bit more.
The vehicle when I first got it.
Oh, don't worry about it, man. Let's get that ID.
So when I said the officer most likely recognizes it, I think he does, because he cuts through the bullshit and gives him the straight to it. He's like, give me your ID. And of course he rummages around, acting like he's looking for it, knowing damn well he ain't got it.
Yeah, you're fine. You don't have any ID on you? Here, why don't you do me a favor? Take off your seatbelt and step out. Did you just hear me? Look at me. Take off your seatbelt.
Are you requesting me?
I'm telling you to take off your seatbelt and step.
Are you requesting me? Oh, God. So, you can see the stupidity in this dude's face. You can see his facial expressions indicative of the little gears, the little rusty gears inside his head squeaking and turning, trying to think up of what he's going to do. Like, this dude knows he's caught. He's thinking about running. He's thinking about fight or flight at this moment. This is common behavior out of people. Anytime an officer gives someone a lawful command and they come up with this kind of behavior, this passively resisting kind of behavior, and the pulling out the "Are you requesting me to? Am I being detained?" It's just, motherfucker, what the hell do you think? Yeah, it's indicative that there's something wrong going on here. The dude's got something to hide. He's doing something wrong, something illegal. He knows he's caught. Now he's thinking about how he's going to save his ass. He already knows that he has an ankle monitor on. He's on probation. He's out on bond. He's got all these priors. And there's drugs in the vehicle. There's a gun in the vehicle. He knows he's going to get hit. He knows this is it for him. He knows that once they find that gun, once they find those drugs, his little ankle monitor day is done with. He's going to go straight back to Concrete City. And you can see that in his face.
Why don't we do this? Put your hands. All right.
Boom. Fast. Now, I like how the officer is being very direct, being very...
Here, why don't you do me a favor? Take off your seatbelt and step out.
Very quick. He's not giving this guy a whole lot of time to be thinking and dwelling on things. This officer is taking command of the scene. He is directing what needs to be going on, and by being fluid like that, you take away that person's ability to very thoroughly think about what they're going to do. You are constantly causing them to have to reset their OODA loop and always keep them in that constant changing mindset, so to speak. Once they think of something and they've observed, oriented, and then you give them another roadblock, boom, they got to fucking alter to that. They got to change what they're thinking about, because now, what they had in their head has now been changed. They're being distracted. They can't think thoroughly. So I like how this officer is being very thorough with his verbal commands, and is just ruling them out. He's not giving this guy a whole lot of time to come up with some bullshit, because he knows, like this officer knows, it's done with. Like this dude, he already sees the stupid in his face. He already knows this dude's about to get dumb.
Did you just hear me? Look at me. Take off your seatbelt.
Are you requesting me?
I'm telling you to take off your seatbelt and step out. Why don't we do this? Put your hands. All right. Partner, are you good? God damn it.
All right, back it up.
Hands. All right.
So it happens. I mean, it's quick. I'm not even really sure where he had the gun at. It's possible he kind of maybe had it down to the side and it was being blocked by all this stuff, because there was the other officer on the other side over there, and you would think that he might have been able to see it, but it could have been on his side, or it could have been within his waistband area. It's kind of hard to see how he produces it, but it gets produced quickly.
Put your hands. All right. Yeah,
it's so fast that, and you can't even freeze frame it right. But he starts the gunfight, and they respond to it. So you see his little legs kicking like little Chucky as he's getting rounds sent at him. This officer here starts to backpedal away from the vehicle while sending rounds downrange to him. Then he starts to move to his right and get behind him and starts shooting through the rear windshield. I'm not the biggest fan of always shooting through windshields or even back glass. One, it causes the rounds to deflect, but he does have possible incoming rounds coming to him, and he is moving, and so the acronym MOVE, Motionless Operators Ventilate Easily. So he is moving and making himself a harder target. He has gone back, he's gotten off the X, and he's moving completely to the right. So now the bad guy, he has to have two completely different areas to focus on. He's going to have to turn around completely, focus on the officer who's now to his rear, or he's going to have to focus to the officer who is to the front left of his vehicle. And he can't focus on both of them at the same time. So it's working out, but it is what it is. And if you can avoid having to shoot through glass, avoid it as much as possible, because glass does deflect rounds. There's no guarantee about how it deflects it. It's just know that it's going to deflect it to some degree. And when it comes to tinted windows, the glass doesn't break out very well because that tint film holds it all together. He continues to move off the X because he has fired to slide lock. Now, firing to slide lock is a little bit rare in gunfights. Typically, this does not always happen, but sometimes it does. And he has fired to slide lock. He's moving off the X, and he is completing a reload. He's gone in behind this cover right here. Now he is ducked down and is coming out. So I like how he is changing himself. He's gone from an upright position. He's gone behind cover. Now he's ducked down so that when he comes out, he's not going to be the same level with that cover. When his head pokes out, it's going to be a lot lower. Him as a target overall has changed, and so it's going to be a little bit more harder for the target to predict exactly how he's going to be positioned coming out from around that cover.
Partner, are you good? God damn it.
Suspect's gun is right there. He's reached down, he's taken a hold of it.
Where are you hit? He's down, he's down. Hey!
Now, he's lucky that all these other officers have arrived here. Now, what if all these other officers were not here? Well, he's going to have to take care of this guy first as far as securing him. Just because he took that one gun away and threw it doesn't mean he doesn't have any other guns. And it doesn't mean that he can't very quickly crawl over to the gun that he just threw to the side and then try to get it up again and back in the fight. So he's going to have to secure this guy, put him in cuffs, and then once he's in cuffs, search him and then come over here and tend to this officer right here. So they're fortunate that all these other officers were here super quick, super fast. And I'll go in the medical here in a little bit, but that's also an important thing to think about if they were alone by themselves and none of them have a tourniquet on them. If he's having to take this time to cuff this guy and get him in the custody and search him, and if he starts resisting, well, while he's resisting and fighting with him, this guy don't have a tourniquet, he can't do any self-aid. And so that's a real important thing when it comes to carrying medical gear on you. If you don't have it on you, it's not good. And if you're of the mindset of, well, I'll keep it in the vehicle if I need it, you're wrong. You're about as wrong as a football bat. Makes no sense whatsoever. So I'll get in the medical here, but this kind of supports my argument of why you need to carry medical gear on you, or this potential hypothetical scenario. Like I said, it works out that everyone's here and they're able to quickly, deal with him, and then someone else gets a tourniquet out and everything. But if they were by themselves, shit would have sucked if this guy continued to fight and be a problem.
Hey! Where you hit? Beamer! Get him in the back of my truck! No! We need a tourniquet now! Jared! Okay! I got it.
All right, so one news article had mentioned something about his vest stopping the round and his flashlight stopping the round. And you can see the flashlight right here is dented, and it's not the best freeze frame. We'll do it again.
Tourniquet now! Jared! Okay.
Pay attention to the body of the flashlight. Yeah, there's a big ass dent in that damn thing.
Ow! Jared! We need a tourniquet now! Jared! Need a tourniquet now! Jared!
I can't get it to freeze right. But yeah, I mean, you can see the dent in that flashlight body right there. Now, if that flashlight wasn't there, would it have made a difference? No, he's got a ballistic vest on. His vest would have stopped it. But the other equipment on there did end up stopping it. Now, that's also something to think about when it comes to radio placement. This is one of the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of putting a radio on the front of your chest, because if you're being shot at, what's something that people are going to most likely be shooting at? Your fucking chest. And if your radio goes down, you cannot communicate with anyone whatsoever. Plus, I also don't like the antenna sticking up. Now, he does have a short, stubby antenna, but still, I don't necessarily like the antenna sticking up a whole lot because that increases the risk of the antenna going into your eye, depending on how your body's contorted during a fight and your head's down and all that. But one of the other kind of bigger reasons is if that radio's to the front of your chest and you're in a gunfight, that radio has a higher probability of being hit by gunfire. And if you're out by yourself and that my dog hears a siren in the background, my dog thinks he's a fire truck. What was I saying? Yeah, so if you're out by yourself and you take rounds, your radio takes a dump and you get hit in the leg and you have some mobility issues and you can't get back to your vehicle to get on the mobile, and no one knows what's happened, you haven't called out shots fired or anything like that, or obviously was not able to because your radio's been hit, then that's some issues right there. You're not going to be able to get help coming to you in a very timely fashion. If you're having to crawl your ass back to your car and get on the mobile, that's going to take time. If you're dismounted from the vehicle and you're a really far distance from that vehicle and you go down and your portable's down, well, that sucks even more. So I recommend radios going on the side. That way you decrease the possibility of them being shot.
Fuck, I got it. You okay? I'm fine. Hey, I'm bleeding a lot.
Put it in park. I can't see what you reach for, man.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have any idea? Here, why don't you do me a favor? Step out. Put your hands.
I've been hit! I've been hit!
Back to so the light reflecting off the A-pillar right here, I think is kind of screwing with the shutter of the camera here, and so you don't really get to see a whole lot of clarity here. But pay attention to his hands. So we saw both hands come up as he's taking the seatbelt off. One hand was opening the door, and the other hand, it looked like it was going into his waistband area, or it could have been off to the side where the seatbelt was. I can't really tell for sure. But this officer is fucking fast. Like, he is quick on the gun.
Put your hands.
So I think that this officer ended up seeing it, but it being so fast, so sudden, I don't think he was able to verbalize it out. It's so fast. Because you can hear him unholster. So Safariland holsters have a pretty distinctive plasticky kind of sound when you holster and unholster, and you can hear it before the gunfire starts. That. So he's quick. Like, he recognized it. So this officer was very alert, very vigilant, and probably, I'd say, that contributed to the overall success and survival for them. Is he was watching this dude like a fucking hawk, and he saw that he was making a movement for a gun, and he started to get his holster out. Or I'm sorry, his holster out. Started to get his gun out of his holster, and I would imagine that he probably was planning on saying something like "Show me your hands" or whatever, as his gun was going to be coming out and be pointing at him. But it just boom. I mean, it just like that, just like the snap of the finger, it happens. Of course, he gets hit and he goes down, but he still continues to deliver rounds on target.
I've been hit!
Now, you can, right before the gun, you see the gun go this way. The dude falls out of the vehicle. He falls. So this officer sees that this guy has fallen out of the car, and so then he goes ahead and drops his gun. I don't like that one bit at all. Yeah, he's been shot. The officer's been shot. He knows he's been shot, but this dude is still a potential threat. That gun needs to be put back in the fight, and so I think that he should have done a reload and get that gun pointed right back at that guy, and be prepared to start putting rounds into him.
Hit! I've been hit!
Because this dude has his gun right there, and so if this dude was able to physically keep on fighting, all he'd have to do is reach over and grab that gun that's sitting right there and then point at this officer who has his gun completely unloaded and laying on the ground and start putting rounds in that officer.
Hit! I've been hit!
God damn it.
I've been hit!
Where are you hit?
Femur!
Down!
Femur! Fuck!
Hey! Hey!
Where you hit? Where you hit? Femur!
Get him in the back of my truck! No! Tourniquet! Tourniquet! We need a tourniquet now!
I've been hit.
Okay. Oh, shit, get in there. I got it.
Hey, I'm bleeding all right.
Now, I'm not sure what the hell that noise is. It might be a fire alarm of some sort. I'm not really sure. It could be that someone inside the building went out because there was a gunfight going on. I thought that, gas pump could have been hit by rounds or something, that they went over and hit the emergency shutoff valve button to cut off the pumps, thinking that would help out, and then that initiated some type of fire alarm. And it's possible that the officer who was laying on the ground firing, one of the rounds went through and hit a pump, and that initiated some type of alarm. I don't know, but I think it's a fire alarm. I'm just not really sure.
Where's he hit?
Yeah. He's hit multiple places.
Hey,
I think the bag was going to be in the femur.
Maybe an ankle monitor.
And it's also possible that it's a panic alarm or something. It's people working inside, hear the gunshots and everything, and they hit the panic alarm, and it set off an exterior alarm. Ideally, the panic alarm should be a silent alarm. It shouldn't automatically set things off because, obviously if someone's robbing the place and they got the gun pointed at the teller, and then next thing you know, the alarm goes off, that's going to alert the robber that the teller set it off, and they might shoot him in the face. But it could have been like a delay kind of thing where after they hit the panic alarm, it's silent for so long and then makes a sound. I'm not really sure what it is, but it's annoying. All right, so he has pulled one item out of the bag, and now he's reaching over. He's going to be touching this guy and potentially getting blood on his gloved hands. Then, if he needs anything else out of the bag, he's going to have to reach into that bag and start pulling stuff out. I'm more of a fan of taking stuff out of the bag, dumping it on the ground, dumping out what you think you need, and then using that stuff on the person. And if anything else is needed out of the bag, ask someone, hey, reach in there and grab me another, 4x4, or, I need some Curlex, whatever. Because if not, you're going to be contaminating the rest of the contents of that bag and the bag itself. And this is also one reason why I think that it's a good idea to, within the bag itself, where you're going to have all your bleeding control stuff, is to have multiple gloves. That way, if you are by yourself and you can't have the ability to direct someone to be reaching into your bag and pulling stuff out, you can go ahead and shed those gloves off that you've already contaminated, put a new set on, reach in the bag, grab out the stuff that you need, set it down, and then continue the work.
I got his head. What you want?
Stay my leg. You stay there, please. Stay my leg, please.
Hey, don't move.
Stay my leg, please.
Don't
Stay
move.
please. I'll stay with it, please. Stay, please.
Back it
Stay,
up.
please. Stay there.
What you want?
Hey!
All right, so this officer here, he has a tourniquet right here on his side of his belt. And you'll notice that in his footage, you see him with it in his hand, and that's how he's able to get it out very quickly, is he has it on him. So that's good. You should be carrying some form of medical gear on you. Obviously, you're not going to be able to keep the entire freaking trauma kit on you, but you can keep some of the basics there on you. And when it comes to pre-hospital care for this type of trauma, it is called TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care, and that is pretty much the gold standard when it comes to tactical medicine, so to speak, providing first aid in a tactical environment. And TCCC is something that came about from the military, came out actually in the late 90s, but really became widespread and really bomb-proof, so to speak, after the first part of the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. The doctrines and the TTPs and all that just became a whole lot better. And that's also why we see tourniquets so popular now. Before the Afghanistan and Iraq wars, the idea about tourniquets is it was a last resort kind of option. Like, shit's got to be really, 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 really bad in order to put a tourniquet on someone. And the mindset behind that was if you put the tourniquet on, then you could potentially cause that person to lose the rest of their limb. Well, some wars happened and some science happened, and people found out that that's bullshit, and it's better to go ahead and put a fucking tourniquet on as soon as possible. And you're going to end up saving the person, and you're not going to be losing their limb. Tourniquets have been recorded to have put on for hours, and the person still gets to keep their limb. They don't have to amputate or anything. So TCCC, like I said, is kind of the gold standard in providing pre-hospital care in a tactical environment. And when it comes to TCCC, if you've ever heard of the ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation, in TCCC you follow MARCH, and M is for massive hemorrhaging, and that's where the tourniquet comes into play. So if you're going to be carrying anything on you, then at bare minimum, if you're going to carry one thing, it needs to be a tourniquet. And when you look at the leading causes of death on the battlefield, massive hemorrhaging is one of those. Now, obviously, in United States, domestic law enforcement, domestic security, whatever, it's not a quote-unquote battlefield the same as Afghanistan and Iraq. And that's obviously true. And a lot of the data that goes into that data set that kind of drives that doctrine, also happens to include shit like landmines and artillery and rockets and, all that shit. We don't have that here in the U.S., at least not right now. But injuries from small arms fire can still cause massive hemorrhaging, and lots of people have been shot in the leg with bullets, and it hits the femur, and they bleed out. So although we don't have, artillery rounds going off and people stepping on landmines and all that crazy shit, small arms fire can still cause massive hemorrhaging and lead to a person expiring. So at bare minimum, I think that if you're going to carry just one thing at all, it needs to be tourniquet. Now, will a tourniquet address massive hemorrhaging for everything? No, it's only for the limbs. If you have to do some wound packing and stuff like that, obviously a tourniquet is not going to be able to go into that area that you would have to do wound packing, because it's just not going to happen. So being able to carry things like compressed gauze with a hemostatic compound on it, quick clot, that is a good thing to also be able to carry on your person. A nasopharyngeal airway to be able to establish a better airway on the person. A chest seal to be able to put an occlusive dressing over a chest wound, a sucking chest wound. Those are some very minor, small things that you can very easily put into a small kit and carry on you. And if you or teammate goes down, you have that gear right there, able to put into use. And those things will be able to address the more likely things to cause death for a person in this type of tactical environment. You can get a medical ankle holster to carry some of the very basic things in there of an IFAC, and it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. It doesn't print, if any at all, unless you're wearing skinny jeans, which if you're a dude, you shouldn't be wearing skinny jeans. If you carry an ankle gun on one ankle for a backup gun, then there's really no reason why you can't put a medical ankle holster on the other ankle and carry that stuff around with you. If you have cargo pockets as a part of your uniform, you can go ahead and get a small kit and stuff it down that cargo pocket, and it can stay there, and it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. If you have an outer vest and you got the molly webbing and everything on there, and there's nothing against adding, stuff to it, you can put pretty much whatever you want to on that vest, then you should put a pouch on there to be able to carry medical stuff in there. If you have a uniform style carrier that you don't have molly or Powell's webbing on the outside, and you can't affix a whole lot of stuff to the outside of it, that's understandable, but you can still get these things to be able to put in a pocket or put into a medical ankle holster. A lot of guys and girls will have this mindset of, well, if I need this, I'll just keep it in the car. And that's not a good mindset to be having, because you don't know if you're even going to be able to get back to your car. Your car could be set on fire. You could be pinned down by gunfire and unable to get to your car. Your car could have been stolen. That happens a lot. Lots of cop cars get stolen. You could be really far away from your vehicle because you had to chase someone, or you had to, maneuver through a field, or what, whatever, and you got some distance away from your vehicle, and you've gone down, you've taken a hit to the leg, it's fractured your femur, you can't put any weight on it, you can't walk. Only thing you do is freaking crawl or hop on one foot, and you're 100 yards away from the vehicle. So arterial bleeding is very serious. You can bleed to death in 90 seconds. 90 seconds. You can bleed out and be dead, and there's nothing anybody can do. Even an ambulance shows up right afterwards and tries to start pumping your body full of blood. You're done with, man. Like, you're fucking gone. There's no bringing you back. And if they were able to somehow manage to bring you back, your brain went so long without oxygenated blood, you're probably going to be a vegetable if they even are able to get your vitals back. Or you're going to have some serious fucking brain damage. You cannot go too long without oxygenated blood going to the brain. So you bleed out, you're fucking done. And that's why this idea of keeping medical gear in the vehicle and nothing on you is bullshit. Like, that is a bullshit fucking mindset to have. If you have that kind of mindset, you need to unfuck yourself, get with the times, get with the program, and carry medical gear on you. Because you never know. If your damn vehicle's going to be set on fire, someone steals it, you're pinned down by gunfire, you can't get to it, or you're so far away from it, it might as well be parked in fucking China. Yeah, the medical gear stuff is expensive. It can be. A freaking cat tourniquet can be somewhere between $20-$30. Not every agency out there pays really great salaries. There's still some cops out there working for fucking $12 an hour. I hate it. Sucks, but that's the reality of the life in that industry. So some officers can't really afford to buy a whole bunch of stuff on their own, but you can get little pieces of it, and that's why I said if you can get just one thing to carry on you, then get a tourniquet. And then next, past that would be either a pressure dressing or some compressed gauze to be able to carry on you. And then you can build upon it from there. Some agencies, they get grant money, or they just got better funding because they have a higher population and they get more taxes. They can buy some kits and give them to officers, and give every officer a tourniquet or something like that, or give every officer an IFAC. That's great, but that does not happen with every agency. A lot of agencies are poor out there, and some agencies, or their administrators, are dumbasses, and they're only check the box kind of people, and they'll only provide a basic first aid box, like one that you can get at frickin' Walmart that has like fucking Band-Aids, a tongue depressor, an instant cold pack, some tweezers in it. A Band-Aid ain't gonna do shit for a gunshot wound. But these administrators will go buy those fucking things and have them put in the cars because it allows them to check a box on some type of minimum standard. And this usually happens with like accreditation bullshit. So some agencies, they love having this title of being an accredited agency. And some of that stuff is, the police station has to have, X amount of first aid boxes or first aid equipment. The vehicle's got to have first aid stuff in it. And they'll go buy this shit and put them in the vehicles, or put them in the station. And funny enough, with that, you'll see a lot of places where they do this to meet that little requirement thing, little check the box kind of thing. They'll get these first aid boxes and they'll put tape around it to seal the box. That way nobody can get into it, and they'll write in there do not open, or they'll put notify lieutenant or captain or whoever in charge of it, notify whatever that the box has been opened. Or, if it's the box and it comes in the original packaging, like it's shrink wrapped or whatever, they'll leave it in the fucking shrink wrap and they'll take a Sharpie and write on the outside of it, do not open. You'd be amazed about the amount of fucking stupidity that goes on within the criminal justice system, the law enforcement community. Like, there's some dumb shit that goes on. But yeah, believe it or not, there are fucking first aid boxes out there in jails and prisons and police stations that say do not open on them, and the only reason they're there is for some checkbox bullshit reason. And unfortunately, with those places, if those administrators are the type to do that, they're not of the mindset of buying this stuff. And they may have the mindset of, well, the ambulance can get there and deal with them, or the fire department can get there and help them. And even some individual officers may have that mindset as well, especially if they work in a urban area. They may have the mindset of, well, the ambulance get here in time for us. You can't guarantee that. You can't count that. Ambulance response times can be pretty long, 7 minutes, 5 minutes at best. And if you can bleed out in 90 seconds and that ambulance gets there 5 minutes later, you're like 4 or 5 times fucked at that point. Like, it's not going to do any good. So you can't have this mindset of relying on the ambulance to be able to treat you. And another thing with ambulances and fire departments is when shots fired shit comes out and they're notified to go there, they go to a staging location first. So obviously people in law enforcement should know this, but anyone else who doesn't know, the fire department will go to a staging location and be like 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away, out of eyesight or whatever, and they'll wait until they get the radio call saying it's safe to come in. So that's really important for non-police, non-security people to be aware of too, because you as an armed citizen, you as a security guard, you should also be carrying this medical gear on you, and should also be recognizing the fact that it may take 5 minutes for an ambulance to respond from their station and get within the area. And then once they get in the area, they're going to stage until they're told that it's safe to come there. And there can be a delay in between the police officer dispatching the police dispatcher getting on the phone, calling the ambulance dispatcher, and then the ambulance dispatcher dispatching the ambulance saying, hey, scene is clear, you can go ahead and go on forward. Like, there's a lot of time involved there. And when it comes to time for pre-hospital treatment, pre-hospital care, time is of essence. It is very important. And so within the pre-hospital care, there's a couple of terminologies that's used. One is the Platinum 10, and the other is the Golden Hour. So the Platinum 10 refers to the first 10 minutes of a traumatic incident, and you being able to provide pre-hospital care to that person. That increases a person's chances of survival by X amount %. And I can't remember what those numbers are, but within the first 10 minutes, if you can provide good pre-hospital care, you can increase a person's chances of survival by a lot. The Golden Hour, if you can get pre-hospital treatment to a person and get them into a hospital within the Golden Hour, again, you can increase their chances of survival by a lot. And like I said, time is the most important thing when it comes to medical emergencies. You have to be able to provide quick care for an injured person. And as I said, when it comes to arterial bleeds, a person can bleed out in 90 seconds. So you got to be able to address those issues right fucking now. Not, let me go to my car, grab my shit, and come back. Like, no. That's bullshit. So when it comes to medical gear being on you, I like to call that first line medical gear. And I am of the opinion that first line medical gear should be reserved solely for you, your teammates, or your family if you're an armed citizen. No one else gets this shit. This bad guy here, let's say that the other officers, they didn't get there very quickly. It's going to take some time, and they had to cuff him up. One tourniquet, guess what? That one tourniquet goes on the injured officer. Even if it wasn't that major of injury, still, dude's going to wait until more backup arrives and get what I call the secondary medical gear. No one should be getting your first line medical gear. The only exceptions to that, for me, the first exception is if it's a kid. Like if it's a little kid, yeah, I'm probably going to be more inclined to break that rule and put a tourniquet on a kid or do something for a kid. But when it comes to adults, especially violent offenders, nah, your ass is going to wait. I'm not using my one and only fucking tourniquet on your fucking dirtbag ass. Like, criminals don't work by themselves all the time. Sometimes they have buddies. If this dude is in the drug running business, he could have had a buddy of his driving behind, watching, looking for tails and stuff. And officers get into this gunfight. The buddy could have pulled into the parking lot there, got out, and as they were putting a tourniquet on the bad guy, his buddy come around, could have got into a gunfight with them and shot one of them. And if they only had one tourniquet to be able to put into play, and it's already on the bad guy, but you've been hitting the leg, what are you going to do? You going to take that tourniquet off that bad guy and put it on you? Not likely. Like, that's not likely going to happen at all. So with that being said, when it comes to first line medical gear, the only time, in my opinion, that it should be used on violent offenders is if the scene is 110% safe. And for me, 110% safe means no less than a fucking platoon of armed police officers or armed security there on scene. If it ain't that, then that scene's not safe. And the scene is not safe from the threat standpoint and from the medical standpoint. Because if you have only a couple people there, then the chances of having good medical gear there to be able to put into play on you or other people is probably pretty low. And if there's some more fighting to be happened and more people get injured, then like I said, I don't want my one and only tourniquet or my only two tourniquets that are able to be put into play on a bad guy, and then more fighting happens and you can't use that damn thing because it's already on them. And then you got good guys who are injured who are needing it. So when it comes to this, like I said, the scene's got to be 110% safe before you start using your personal gear on other people. And for me, the only hard exception to that would be little kids. Everyone else, in my opinion, gets what I call second line medical gear. And this officer who is arriving with the backpack full of stuff is using what I would consider second line medical gear. It's just a bag that has some supplemental stuff in it to be able to supplement what you have used on you, that you carry on you, and or it's a standalone type of equipment to be able to use on 1 to 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 people, depending on how big a bag it is and what all you got set up in it. So violent offenders who've tried to shoot at you and good people and partners and stuff, they don't get first line medical gear unless it's 110% safe on the scene. They can wait for the second line medical gear to get there to be able to use it on them. Having the gear is one part of the solution. The training is the other big part of the solution. So I am a firm believer that if you're going to carry the tools to induce trauma, then you should also carry the tools to reduce trauma. And that also applies to your training, your knowledge. your skill sets. So if you have the knowledge and the skill set to use deadly physical force against a person and take a life, then you should also have the skill set to save a life. If you carry a gun for a living, then you should recognize the fact that there's a possibility that you could be involved in a gunfight, and in gunfights, bullets go both ways, and you can be shot. So if you're going to carry a gun, you need to carry medical stuff on you. And you need to get the knowledge on how to use it. And you need to get something beyond just a basic CPR, AED, first aid class, because that shit is not going to be very reliable concrete training to get you prepared for treating gunshot wounds. The curriculum for most CPR, AED, first aid classes is very basic. It's very watered down kind of stuff, and the first aid curriculum stuff covers a wide range of different things, going into hypothermia, diabetic emergencies, environmental, emergencies, hazmat kind of stuff. And then when it gets to the actual first aid stuff, you put a cravat on a person, how to splint a limb, and how to wrap a bandage around someone. It doesn't really go into using tourniquets, chest seals, nasopharyngeal airways, stuff like that. It may go into using a bag valve mask or using a face shield, but it just doesn't go very in-depth the way it should. It's a very basic first aid class for boo-boos. Someone's fallen off a ladder and they've got a little cut on their arm or something like that. That training is geared towards that. It's not geared towards very traumatic gunshot wounds or stab wounds where a person has a big fucking hole in them and they're losing a lot of blood. So when it comes to medical training, you got to go above and beyond just your basic CPR, AED, first aid class, and go with something that kind of mirrors TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care, or it has facets from that in the class, and that's the route to go. Now, when it comes to those kind of classes, most of the time that stuff comes from private training companies. And those are not always the cheapest route to go. Sometimes the ambulance provider in your area would be able to put on a class to get people more squared away for being able to use tourniquets and stuff like that. Or even sometimes an air ambulance company in an area can put on a specialized pre-hospital trauma life support kind of sort of class, more geared towards law enforcement. Or even the firefighters can do that if it's a type of agency where the firefighters are like EMTs and paramedics. So some agencies can have that kind of resource there. Some agencies will also maybe have the luxury of having someone who has been a former service member and have had combat lifesaver training or something like that. And those guys can kind of do maybe an unofficial, impromptu kind of training scenario at shift briefing or something like that. It might not be something that could be counted as official hours or anything like that in some places, but it's better than obviously nothing at all. You can watch some videos on YouTube to get an idea about how some equipment is used, how to set some equipment up, but YouTube should never be a substitute for real training under the watchful eye of a competent instructor. So on top of, getting your firearms training in, you need to be getting out there, getting your medical training in as well. Because like I said, if you're going to carry the tools to induce trauma, you need to carry the tools to reduce trauma and have that knowledge, skill set base, be able to go both ways. So this dude ended up surviving this gunfight. The officer obviously survived, but the bad guy ended up surviving as well. So that tells me that there was not really good hit placement on this guy. And to me, that's unfortunate. I wish that these officers would have been a lot more accurate and put more tighter group into center mass. But, shit happens. A search of his vehicle revealed over 120 grams of meth and a digital scale, as well as 2 handguns. If convicted, he faces a minimum of 10 years in prison and up to life for the drug charges, as well as a minimum of 10 years for using the firearm, which must be served consecutively to the other prison term imposed. So, the way the criminal justice system works, unfortunately, this guy might not even do 10 years, and he tried to kill a cop. Like, that's that is frustrating as shit to think about. Our country severely needs some justice reform, and is not the kind of justice reform that the woke liberal left wants. Like, we need to get hard on crime. Violent offenders are being released early, too soon, and too often. Violent offenders are given, they're given 10 years, but they are eligible for parole after they serve, 20%, 50%, 60%. They can go up for shock probation, shock parole, and that's wrong. Like, violent offenders should not be out and about with the rest of us. This is a recurring theme all across the nation. Violent offenders like him being out on bond, being out on parole, being out on probation, and getting into gunfights with police, and either injuring police or killing police. This happens too fucking much. And we need justice reform. Like, it is time to make criminals fear the criminal justice system again. Because right now, it does not scare them. They don't give a shit about the police. They don't give a shit about the courts. Because they know they go in there, they're not doing 10 years flat. Unless they're being caught up on the federal side. The federal side of the government is usually a lot better when it comes to imposing sanctions on people, which is why a lot of your larger metropolitan agencies that have a lot of goofy-ass liberal administrators and elected officials in place who really tie their hands behind their back and don't let the police be the police, that's why you see those places start partnering up with federal agencies a lot more often. For example, Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville police up there have a bunch of stupid-ass liberals in charge, and they tie the officers' hands behind their backs. They don't let the police be the police, and what the police are having to do is they're having to partner up with the fucking ATF and FBI and let them take the lead on some investigations so that they can get people caught up on federal charges. And once they get those federal charges and go to federal court, they get to go away for a lot longer time than if they were to charge them at the state level, because they're liberal-ass judges up there. Just fucking let them loose. Things in this country are going to be getting a lot worse. A lot fucking worse. The woke liberal left, when they talk about justice reform, they talk about bail reform, being able to make it easier for people to get out of the jail. And their justification behind that is because people of color are the ones who are victims of the criminal justice system. They're the marginalized are the ones who are unable to meet the bonds, and they're the ones who are unfairly being locked away. Or they come up with some other bullshit reasoning about, why their version of a justice reform should be done. So you got bail reform, you've got alternatives to detention kind of bullshit, this fucking ankle monitor stuff, other things, and just, releasing people early. And it's obviously having an impact on this country. And it's not like this has just happened within the last couple of years. This is stuff that's been going on for several years, but it's getting worse. Like, it is just progressively getting worse. Like, right? Like, the progressive left is progressively making things worse. It's getting progressively worse, and it's going to get more worse than what it is right now. And at time of recording, it is May 31st. And so, in this country, we've already experienced the mass killing in Buffalo, New York, and the mass killing at the elementary school down in Texas. And, the calls for gun control are very strong right now. The president has talked about gun control initiatives and legislation, and of course everyone talks about the weapons of war, you're 15, but the president even has apparently said that no one needs 9mm. There are no reason for people to have a 9mm. So if these woke liberals are successful in implementing some type of weapons ban that is a draconian kind of weapon ban that would take away rifles and take away most handguns and limit you to like fucking bullshit, then that coupled with the criminals just being treated very lightly in the criminal justice system and being released often, things are going to get real bad, because they're not going to have a fear whatsoever of coming into your home because they know you're not going to have a gun. And if you do, it's not going to be one very powerful enough or have a whole lot of ammo in it. And they're the ones who are going to have the powerful guns and have the guns with more ammo in it. If we can't keep fucking meth off the streets, if we can't keep cocaine off the streets, we don't grow fucking cocoa leaves here in America. At least not to my knowledge. If we do, it's in a lab somewhere. We don't have cocoa leaves growing naturally here in the U.S. Cocaine is manufactured in South America, where the environment down there, the climate is better for those cocoa leaves to grow. Cocaine's made down there. It has to travel in some form and cross the border to get here into the U.S. If we can't fucking stop that shit, and it's been illegal for a while, and it's still a persistent problem, and there are people who want cocaine can go get it as easily as they can a fucking candy bar, and then how the fuck are we going to keep the criminals away from having AR-15s? How are we going to keep them away from having high-capacity magazines? We're fucking not. So obviously, if you're a gun person, you're going to understand this argument. For the people who are maybe on the fence or kind of, pro gun control or whatever, think about that for a second. If we can't keep meth off the streets, we can't keep cocaine off the streets, and people who want it can go get it as easily as they can a fucking candy bar, how the hell are we going to keep these assault weapons off the streets? We're not. It's just going to end up being the criminals carrying that stuff, and the law-abiding people are not going to have access to it. And more law-abiding people are going to become victims. So I would foresee some more extreme street violence occurring within the large metropolitan areas, and I would most likely see an increase in home invasions occurring within certain areas if there's, a very draconian approach to a gun ban or something like that, especially Canada. Of course, time of recording right now, the guy in charge in Canada, he's said that he's proposing legislation to ban handguns and to do a gun buyback thing for those in assault weapons. So that sucks. It's not something that I like to think about. Having the ability to protect myself and my family taken away from me. It's kind of sad. It really is. But unfortunately, that's where we're at when a bunch of stupid people end up getting elected into office and start ruining shit. Like this right now, what's going on in America is a perfect example of what can happen to a successful and prosperous business when the bad people get into the leadership roles. When you don't have leaders anymore, you just have people who are supervisors / managers, people who check boxes and do shit and not lead from the front. So that's where we're at right now. We don't have we got some true leaders, but overall, like the people we got in office right now in the White House, fucking sucks. And it's been sucking for a while. So things are going to be getting really bad over the years here in America, in my opinion. And you got to think about from the international level too. So I know this is going into a very long rant, but if you have not done any research into China and them wanting to become the first world power, then you should do that. And so things could be looking very, very bad for America here in the next several years. We could become the next failed socialist state and start looking like Cuba or Venezuela or some other shithole fucking country that tried to adopt communism / socialism. Anyway, feel like I got into a pretty long rant. Sometimes that happens, which is one of the reasons why some of these videos take so long, because I end up being long-winded. But anyway, if you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.